Matthew Miller there, speaking on behalf of the State Department. We're bringing this all to you in real time, and we pull away from this so we can get you to the Pentagon. Department of Defense Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder now speaking to reporters following this Iranian attack on Israel.
Israel for confirmation, and any questions on that, is there in a better position to discuss? Please note that we're still assessing the attack and the outcome, so numbers may change as we receive updates. Additionally, no U.S. personnel were injured or harmed during the Iranian missile attack. Secretary Austin, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General C.Q. Brown Jr., and U.S. Central Command Commander General Eric Kurilla have been in constant contact with President Biden and Vice President Harris throughout the day to consult on the situation and U.S. actions. In addition to his phone call earlier this morning with Israeli Minister of Defense Gallant prior to the Iranian attack, Secretary Austin spoke to the minister again just a short while ago to get an update. He reaffirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of Israel and underscored that the U.S. remains well-postured throughout the Middle East region to protect U.S. forces and defend Israel in the face of threats from Iran and Iran-backed terrorist organizations. We'll provide a readout of that call as soon as possible. To be crystal clear, as Secretary Austin has said, should Iran, its partners, or its proxies use this moment to target American personnel or interests in the region, the United States will take every necessary measure to defend our people. And separately, I do have an update to provide on DoD support to Hurricane Helene response efforts, but I'll provide that at the end. With that, I'm happy to take your questions. We'll start with AP. Tara.
Thanks, General Ryder. What Navy destroyers were involved in helping shoot down and intercept? And given this escalation, what's being communicated between Secretary Austin and Minister Gallant right now in terms of tampering things down and potentially avoiding a wider war?
So the two Navy destroyers involved were the USS Bulkley and the USS Cole. In terms of the conversations between Secretary Austin and Minister Gallant, I won't get into the private discussions other than to say we are consulting closely with them on next steps and the continued defense of Israel.
And then, are there any plans underway to conduct a NEO given the increased risk of a wider war?
Right now, there has been no order to evacuate. As you've heard us say before, we are a planning organization, so we, of course, plan for all contingencies. But as of right now, State Department has not called for an evacuation. Jennifer.
Should we assume that the SM-3s were used by the Cole and the Bulkley to shoot down or to intercept the missiles?
I'm not going to get into the specific type of ordnance, Jennifer, other than to say, again, they fired a dozen interceptors.
And Iran said that they gave a heads up to the U.S. and to Russia. How much warning were you given by Iran?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any pre-warning by Iran about their potential attack. As you know, this is something we've been following very closely for a while based on the threats of retaliation by Iran. And so we've been closely consulting with Israel for a while now to be prepared in the eventuality. And as today demonstrated, we were prepared and we were able to successfully work alongside Israel to defend them from this attack. Let me go to Carla.
Thanks, Pat. You said that the destroyers shot down Iranian missiles. Where do they come from? Were they all from inside Iran, or was some also from Yemen being shot by the Houthis?
Carla, to my knowledge, and again, we're still assessing this, these were all launched from Iran, ballistic missiles. And what I said was that they fired the interceptors towards those missiles. So.
And then were any other U.S. assets involved in this defense?
Of course, we have a lot of capability in the region, a lot of things that are there to be prepared for a wide variety of threats. But in terms of the launching of these interceptors, it was those two destroyers.
So just being clear, no ground-based interceptors were used in this.
Correct.
Were the were you aware of any duds that didn't fire off, that maybe Iran wanted to fire more than the roughly 200?
As I mentioned, we're still assessing the outcome of the attack, and so we'll have much more information later. But these are all, our initial reports.
And then on the second call with the Secretary and Minister Gallant, Did he urge Israel not to respond or to moderate any response to Iran, or did Gallant share any of Israeli intentions for their potential response here?
Well, again, as I'm sure you can appreciate, I'm just not going to be able to get into the details of their call other than to say, again, we're consulting closely about next steps and the continued defense of Israel.
What does Secretary Austin think about the potential for an Israeli response here? Would he urge them, without saying what he said in the call necessarily, but what are his feelings about the potential? Would he urge them restraint or?
Well, look, if you take a step back here, we fully support Israel's right to defend itself. You just saw a very significant ballistic missile attack by Iran against Israel. And so, we'll continue to work alongside them to support their defense. We, of course, do not want to see a wider regional conflict. You've heard us say that many times, and we'll continue to work towards that end. But we also fully understand the fact that this was a significant attack by Iran, and so we're going to continue to consult closely, and we're going to continue to support their defense. Let me go to Laura.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarifications. You say that the U.S. destroyers had intercepted or shot down the missiles, or just that they fired?
I said that they fired approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles.
And were there any U.S. aircraft that shot interceptors at Iranian missiles?
What I've read out is what participated in the defense of Israel. Okay.
And then, sorry, just one more. Can you say if there were any drones or cruise missiles that were involved in the Iranian
Again,
attack?
still assessing it right now. It appears it was ballistic missiles, no drones, but again, we'll continue to assess. Let me go to Joseph, and then we'll come here.
Thank you. Just wanted to turn to the Israeli invasion in Lebanon. For the past couple of months, the department and the secretary have called for de-escalation. You guys have voiced your opposition to any ground incursion, invasions, limited operations. After we found out that the Israeli strike last week killed the Hezbollah chief, Hassan Nasrallah, it seems like the tone changed. From the statements last night, the department and the secretary said they supported what Israel is doing. So what changed for a change in that tone and that stance from the department?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, Joseph, is we fully support Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah. As we understand it, they will be conducting limited operations to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure that's arrayed along the border there that could be used to threaten Israeli citizens. And so we're continuing to consult with the Israelis to better understand how they intend to go forward. Obviously, I'd refer you to them to talk or ask questions about details regarding those operations. But we fully understand as part of their overall efforts to return people home that they do need to address those threats that are along the border there. And so all that to say, we will continue to consult with the Israelis and other partners in the region long term about how we can ultimately de-escalate those tensions and get to a ceasefire.
Have they asked for any help from you guys doing whatever it is that they want to do?
No. Yes, sir.
Were the United States surprised by the scale of the Iranian attack on Israel?
Well, look, like I said before, we've been monitoring this for a while. Iran had been very public about its threats to retaliate, and so it's something that we've been monitoring. Certainly, this was a significant attack, probably about twice the size in terms of scope of what we saw earlier. But again, we're still assessing the outcomes of this. And as I highlighted at the top, we certainly condemn this reckless attack, this direct attack against Israel, and we'll continue to support Israel's defense.
Several Israeli media spoke about a response tonight, Israeli response tonight to this attack, including some, not just Iran, some other Middle Eastern countries. Will the United States be assisting the Israelis in their response?
Well, I'm not going to speculate about hypotheticals. I'd refer you to the Israelis to talk about,
I'm asking about, will the Americans help them with their response?
Well, what you're asking me is if they're going to do something, and what I'm saying is I'm not going to speculate about what or if they may do. As I highlighted to several of your colleagues, we're consulting closely with the Israelis in terms of next steps, with the emphasis being the defense of Israel. So let me go to this side of the room. Oren.
Essentially a follow-up to that question, is the U.S. willing to strike Iran in response to this? Are you putting that on or off the table?
Well, look, Garnett, again, I don't want to get into hypotheticals. I think I was very clear at the top that should U.S. forces be targeted by Iran or its proxies, we'll take necessary steps to defend our people. And I think we've also been very clear that we're going to support the defense of Israel. And so I'm not going to get into theoretical or speculative operations at this stage, other than to say, we mean what we say and we say what we mean.
And then a follow-up question. Iran claims to have used a new Fatah missile, which is supposed to be a hypersonic ballistic missile. Can you assess whether they did use new and advanced weaponry in this attack and whether they learned from the April attack?
Again, we're still assessing the attack and the outcomes, and so we may have more to provide later, but I don't have anything on that right now. Dan.
Thanks for your time. Two questions, please. On Secretary Austin's statement last night, he referred to being supportive of operations along the border. Is he open to Israel using operations on both sides of the border? Along the border was a little vague there.
Well, I think I'd go back to how I responded to Joseph, right? We understand and support Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah, as we highlighted in the readout. We understand that part of that is dismantling some of the attack infrastructure that Hezbollah has built along the border. Certainly, again, we don't want to see this, broaden into a wider regional conflict, but we understand, again, that what Israel is doing are limited operations to destroy that attack infrastructure and then enable citizens on both sides of the border to return home. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we do think that a diplomatic resolution is the only way to achieve lasting stability and security across the Israel-Lebanon border. So, we're going to continue to work to that end. But we also, again, understand Israel's need to defend itself.
And then a follow. The State Department read out a report on an attack on a diplomatic facility at Baghdad Airport last night. Have you seen any other attacks on U.S. forces, I guess, since Friday? This one would seem to be on a diplomatic facility, but be it in the last day, particularly at this heightened time of tension, or just broadly over the last couple of days?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm not aware of any additional attacks. Thanks. Sir.
The Iron Dome, how effective is it against ballistic missiles and
All right, we've been listening to the Department of Defense Press Secretary, Major General Pat Ryder, answering and avoiding answering some specific questions from reporters. So by now you've heard the latest information from the Pentagon, the White House, and the State Department on Iran's largest and most violent attack against Israel. We've got Sam Vinograd and Courtney Keeley here with us as part of this ongoing breaking coverage. And Sam, one thing that stood out to me at multiple press conferences is the question of NEOs were asked, these non-combatant evacuation operations, specifically for, I guess, Americans in Lebanon. It does not appear that the U.S. is taking that action yet. But what would that mean if that does happen? What's the barrier there? Because certainly tensions in the region are escalated now.
Well, Errol, the U.S. government has been planning for potentially multiple non-combatant evacuation operations from multiple embassies in the region since October 7th. I was in the room as part of those discussions, and it was viewed as prudent planning based upon the dynamic security situation. It is worth noting that the U.S. has already pre-positioned specific assets in maritime waters in the region that would support a NEO if one was needed. In particular, you mentioned Lebanon. I will note our embassy staff in Lebanon is quite small at this juncture. They've been diminishing numbers over a period of time based upon the security situation. But a NEO, a decision to go to a NEO would be a decision made by the State Department with support from the Department of Defense, and that has not yet occurred. Based on my experience, whether or not to engage in a NEO in Lebanon, in Israel, in Saudi, in Qatar, or elsewhere is reviewed on a daily, if not twice daily basis based upon the dynamic security situation. So we should wait to see whether a NEO is implemented, but there are assets pre-positioned to assist with a NEO as soon as that decision is made.
Sam Vinograd joining us from our Washington bureau. I really appreciate all of your insight on this developing story today. Courtney Keeley has been with me here in Studio 57, and you've had extensive experience on the ground reporting from many of these places. In summary, what happened today and what will this do to the people, the many different peoples in the region?
First of all, Iran showed that they have a reach. They can hit Jerusalem. They can hit Tel Aviv. They rarely show their hand. We saw it in April after several Iranian Revolutionary Guard were killed in Damascus by Israeli strikes. It took about a week for them to respond. They did it slowly. They let the U.S. and Israel's other allies be prepared. This time, it took about 3 to 4 days after the death of Hassan Nasrallah, but it still happened. You have decimated humanitarian populations in northern Israel, southern Israel, in Gaza, and now into Lebanon, spilling into Syria, which is a hostile environment for refugees. It's a hostile environment for Syrian refugees going back to their homeland after they fled the brutalities of President Assad. You have very limited governing power in Lebanon, and you have about 16, 17 different religious sects that all speak for themselves. Nasrallah's supporters, this is an ideology that spreads to a vision of an Islamic State playing the long game. Now you have Deputy General Naim Qassem saying he is going to continue this fight. He is very well versed in military tactics. He was the southern commander when Israel had that so-called buffer zone for nearly 20 years. These grudges are long. This will continue. This is not a one-off. This is a lot of things are happening in the shadows. We have to look at Ain al-Assad base, where the U.S. service men and women are also based, taking out ISIS in Syria. Yeah. They were supposed to withdraw. They're vulnerable. A lot of vulnerabilities for a lot of people right now, and nobody de-escalating.
And things are complicated, and certainly we've all witnessed things shift today. Courtney Keeley, thank you so much for your experience.